Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome for the first time. I don't really know who's here. Hey, how's it going? So with the whole like Trump and Hillary thing, and with the whole election and inauguration, all the stuff that's going on, there's been a lot of people joking and some not that are saying like, I'm leaving America. How to immigrate to Canada? Lots of people are looking stuff up like this, right? Now I'm someone who actually left America a long time ago, so I kind of understand the way that people feel. I kind of understand the way they think about this, and I wanted to kind of give my 2 cents about this whole thing. So I live in Japan. I've been living in Japan now for over 10 years, since 2006. Now, one of the questions people ask me a lot, both Japanese people and other immigrants and foreign people, whatever, is, why did you come to Japan? What brought you to Japan? Why did you come? But the thing is that answer is pretty much the same for most people from kind of the Western world in general, right? If you're from Europe or North America, maybe even South America too, I'm not really sure, but I assume so. People come to Japan for similar reasons. I used to be a huge weeaboo, I played games, and I loved anime and that type of stuff. So the reason I came to Japan is pretty simple. It's the same for most people, but the bigger chunk of this discussion, this whole topic and conversation is, why did I leave America? Why did I leave my country, right? United States, America is one of the most patriotic, nationalistic countries like in the world, I would assume. I mean, they're right up there and tell like America #1, we're the freest country in the world, the best country in the world, we have the best, blah, blah, blah. Like people just parrot this garbage all the time. Like American people, generally speaking, really think that they live in the greatest country in the world. So why would someone leave America? Well, I thought I would kind of weigh in on this topic and this discussion because now a whole lot of people are talking about it. So, But to put my thesis statement at the beginning of this whole video, I would say this. If you ever have a chance, and if you're from America, you're from Canada, you're from whatever country it is, if you ever get the chance to visit or live in another country, take that chance, okay? Because so many people don't get the chance, or they do, but they give up on it, and they're like, oh, it's just too hard, and oh, maybe there's a language barrier, or maybe I don't know how things work, and I don't know. If you ever get the chance, in my experience, it is worth it every time. But now, on to me. Why did I leave America? The greatest country in the world. Now, some of these reasons are pretty personal to me and my family, and some of these reasons are just kind of general to society. So I think there's a good balance between these two influences about why did I come to this decision and why haven't I moved back in 10 years. So first of all, there's this. I'm a middle child. I have 3 older brothers, 1 younger sister, but my 2 oldest older brothers are twins, so they kind of occupy one spot in the food chain, so to speak. So, I was a middle child, and middle children, generally speaking, are more independent and more kind of in their own space, because older children always get special treatment because they're first. The youngest is always the baby, and in my case, the youngest is also the only girl, so she's like a double princess. So me being in the middle, I was kind of always doing my own thing. Of course, as a young kid looking up, to my brothers, I always wanted to be like them, right? That's how it is. You look at your brothers up and you're like, that's what cool means, and that's what being an adult means. And then of course you grow up and you're like, oh boy, was I wrong about that. But that's a different conversation. But the thing is, I was always rather independent, kind of had to have my own friends, kind of had to do my own thing. I was always very different than everybody else, and I still am to this day, for better or worse. I was always independent, and I kind of always wanted to carve my own space, to kind of find my own path through things. Now, along with this, my family was also very religious. I mean, they were, compared to most families, I'd say they were pretty strict. It was like, you can't date until you're 16, which at the time I was like, I can't date till I'm 16, can't kiss, can't hold hands, I can't believe it, this is outrageous. And then I turned 16 and I still couldn't get a date, and I was like, boy, that was a waste of energy, wasn't it? But anyway, yes, so my family was very religious. Like, we couldn't watch certain TV shows, we couldn't listen to certain music, we couldn't participate in certain it was, I'm not gonna go through the whole list, but it was pretty strict, and I always rebelled against this because there was really no good reason to me except like, because Jesus said so. And it's like, well, did he though? So me and my parents got into a lot of fights a lot because we just could not see eye to eye. They were so much about this religious aspect, and like it got to the point where in late junior high school, kind of into high school, like I just could not hang out with my friends ever. Like I couldn't go over to anyone's house. I couldn't sleep over anywhere. Everyone had to come to our house. Everyone had to sleep over at our house if we did something like that, because it's like, well, I don't know them. I don't know their parents. You guys could be smoking weed and shooting joints in your veins or whatever kids do. I don't know. So it was really kind of weird. It was always like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, say anything. It was always very, very strict or I felt so at the time. And I always kind of resented that because it's like I was never able to learn valuable social skills. I was never able to speak my mind. I had to tiptoe around everything, and I had to say the right thing, and I had to pretend that I felt this or thought that about. It's like I felt like, I mean, growing up in a religious house, you learn how to be the greatest actor in the world. I'll tell you that right now. If I ever win an Oscar, that's going in my speech. But now that's personal to me. Maybe a lot of you can't really relate to that, but to me that was a big influence where like when I was 18, I wanted to get out as soon as possible, and I talked about it all the time, like I'm getting out, I'm going on my own. To my parents' credit, they always kind of supported that. They're like, you want to go out on your own, go and do it. I think they thought that I was going to fail and I was going to come back eventually, but still, my parents, they're like, if you want to leave, then leave at 18. We had a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, and I did. When I was 18 years old, I had $500 in my pocket. I bought a plane ticket to Japan, had a suitcase. I was off. Haven't been back for a long period of time in like 10 years. But now speaking in more of a broad sense, and this applies to a lot of people in America now with the whole Donald Trump thing and the whole election thing and all this stuff, the whole American psyche, the whole idea of like patriotism and we are number one and America's the best, the freest country in the world. I was fed that stuff growing up like a lot of other Americans probably were. We're like, you're in third grade and they're like, America's the freest country in the world. If you go to another country, you're gonna wish that you had the freedoms that you enjoy here, which is completely untrue. But anyway, so the whole kind of American politics, the whole kind of, not just politics, but the whole kind of societal psyche, this sort of cerebral blanket over the entire country, which is like, we're number one and everything else is garbage. And there's, America, like my family is very religious, and America in general is very, very Christian. And there's all this like fighting going on about like, well, you see it all the time on Twitter, on the news, and even, politics and whatever, where it's just like, like there's so many debates now going on between, like very conservative and very liberal. And it basically comes down to is like, well, in the Bible, it says this. I don't believe the Bible. Well, we can't really have a conversation now, can we? And so it's kind of this, like, it's so built on these kind of Puritan ideas where like, like for example, America loves war, they love violence, they love killing people, but if you show a boob or a nipple on TV, people are like, think of the children. Makes no sense at all, because every child has a boob and a nipple, and every child's not walking around with a gun shooting people in the head, right? But it was sort of like the combination of me growing up in a very religious household, being surrounded, I grew up in Iowa, I grew up in Hickville, hillbilly, like you drive 5 minutes any direction, it's an open field with buffalo running around. Iowa, that's where I grew up. So I was surrounded by people who were like guns, God, and that's what America's all about. So I grew up in this kind of thing, and I was really sick of this. I was really tired of this kind of, I saw it and I still see it in a certain way, this kind of backwards way of thinking where it's like we all want to live in the 1950s or something. Like, well, we all just want to live on the Andy Griffith show. Like that's where I grew up basically. I wanted to leave and go somewhere. So when I was in high school, I became an exchange student for 6 weeks in Japan because again, I was a huge weeb. So I went to Japan for 6 weeks and I had a blast. It was really great. I was in Japanese high school. I was there in the motherland, and I was like, I really want to go back because 6 weeks was not enough. And it's, it's a very sheltered experience. It's very much like you do this at this time, and there's guardians and there's people you can call if there's a problem. Like it's very sort of sheltered. And I wanted to go back as an adult, and I wanted to be like, what's it like without any training wheels? What's it like without any bumpers on the gutters? Like that's what I wanted to experience. So I did. And I originally thought I was gonna be here for a year, but then it turned into 10 years. And the thing is, I realized having said this, Japan is maybe even more nationalistic than America is. So, I kind of failed to dodge a bullet on that one. But it's very interesting to live in a society where religion governs very little. I mean, obviously, even if you're not Christian in America, there's aspects of Christianity that are kind of part of even the secular lifestyle, just the holidays you celebrate, the turns of phrase you say, things like that. And of course, Japan has that with Buddhism as well. By and large, a very large part of Japan doesn't really care about religion at all. It's part of these sort of secular customs that exist now, but most people in Japan don't have big old Buddha statues that they pray to every morning while they play with little beads. Most people don't do that. And so being in a society where it's like this whole like religious aspect of things, no one really cares or talks about, being in a place where, universal healthcare works really well and taxes are done automatically. And it's just so much easier to live in a place that's not so obsessed with playing with its own belly button. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Is that a phrase? I don't know. I think I made that up. But there's also another aspect, and you might not believe me when I say this, but it's true. I grew up in Iowa, so in my entire high school, there was maybe 1 or 2 black kids. There was a couple of Hispanic kids and a whole lot of WASPs. And it's like you see on TV, you see in movies this whole like, white versus black, and there's, is racism dead? Is it still alive? What's going on? Of course, now with politics, we see that racism is very much alive. But anyway, when I was, 18 years old, whatever, or even younger than that, I wanted to experience what it was like to be a minority, but I wanted to take it to its furthest extreme. Because like, for example, like if you're white in America, even if you live in a city or neighborhood that's like mostly black, for example, like that you could just move to a different city and things would totally change. And you turn on TV and everyone looks like you and every politician pretty much looks like you, and I wanted to be like, what's it like to kind of live that life of it's like, no one looks like me, no one talks like me. It's not that I wanted to be special. I just wanted to live on the other side, where it's like, what's it like living in a place where not everyone likes you or not everyone trusts you right away? Or what's it like living in a place where you have to learn a different language and you have to learn a different sort of psyche, a different way of thinking? And so I was like, well, Japan is a great place because, you have to understand this is 10 years ago. Nowadays, things are a bit different. But 10 years ago, the only like really sort of highly developed country that was not North American or European at the time was Japan. Now, of course, South Korea is much higher. China is much higher in these last 10 years. Different places have kind of picked up. At the time, Japan was kind of the only choice of going somewhere where everyone is a different race, a different ethnicity, different language, different culture, custom, but still, it's not a place where I have to worry about dying from dysentery. So I came to Japan and I realized that like, getting away from the religion, getting away from the obsession with politics, getting away from a lot of the ideals and things. Now, I'm not saying that Japan's a perfect place. Of course, there's problems. Of course, there's things in the government and politics, and there's some religious stuff here and there, and there's a lot of racial tension. But again, that's kind of, I wanted to experience that. I wanted to experience, what's it like having racial tension where it's like, is actually about you and against you, and what's it actually like? I'm not gonna say that I know what it's like to be black in America, because I don't, but I do know what it's like to be a very visible minority where a lot of people, don't want you there just because you look different. And so I've learned a lot and I've really grown, I think, as a person. That's why I said at the beginning, if you ever get a chance, especially if you're American, if you're white American especially, it's like if you ever get a chance to live somewhere that's different like culture, different everything, just take it, man. If you're in high school, you're in college, you have a chance to do an exchange at a sister school somewhere in like India or China or something, like just take it, man. Like you will learn so much by living in a different culture, a different place. And like people who like grow up in America and they stay in America and they never live somewhere else or even like visit somewhere else, I'm just like, man, your world is so small, but the world is so big and you can learn so much. And there's so many people out there that you can learn things from, different ways of thinking, different opinions on things, and some people just want to give that up because it's like, but America is the best country in the world. It's not. It's really not. Anyway, guys, I just want to make this video because people ask me why I came to Japan, which I've answered now and then, and I've answered, it's kind of the same answer as everybody else. But the bigger part of the question is, well, why did you leave America and why do you stay away? Just things seem to keep getting worse and things like are progressing in one way, but then they turn around the other way. And it's just like, and people are arguing over things that I don't even understand how it's an argument, honestly. Like, that's a whole nother topic, but there's just some topics you see in the news where it's just like, why is this a debate? It's like common sense. It's like, is fire hot? No, I think fire's cold. You can think whatever you want, doesn't make it true. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and leave a comment below. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I got videos coming 3 times a week, sometimes about Japan, sometimes it's little comedy reaction videos, sometimes it's just, I don't even know what I'm doing. I just turn on the camera, stuff just falls right out. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.